the Spencer.
Yeah, very good afternoon to you. It's midday, it's Thursday, it's time to talk boxing with Spencer Oliver, talkSPORT's fight pundit, who joins us in the studio now. Hey, very good afternoon to you, fella.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I missed the memo.
You missed the memo.
Did I not get the phone call?
No.
What's happened?
Are you talking about similar clothing?
Yes.
Similar.
Yeah,
very similar.
Except mine's well fitted.
It's just me, obviously, just trying to look up to my mentor. That's
Oh, yeah.
He's knocking the fact that you shop in Zara or something. I don't know what he's going on about.
yeah, well, you know, I would say I'd take you down there, but you wouldn't be seen dead in anything from there. Okay, let's talk about Chris Eubank Jr. because he says he's not going to box again until he's 100% back to full health. He posted a video of himself in hospital, seemingly unconscious, along with a statement, but didn't provide any details on his conditions. And of course, this has been sort of doing the rounds ever since the fight, in which he really was second best. The video is on the YouTube channel if you're watching right now, by the way. We're showing it at this moment. After the fight against Conor, Benn, he suggested he'd been dealing with problems leading up to the fight, but didn't want to expand on it. You know, we heard from Hearn almost a week later. There was, again, allusions to something that was going on, but no one's quite wanting to talk about it. So what is the situation here? He said, I've been dealing with a lot of health issues over the last year, and it finally all caught up with me last month. I suppose the big question is, if it was that bad, why did he get in the ring in the first place?
1,000,000%. Look, wealth over health is the situation here, isn't it? Like Chris Eubank Jr. is obviously there's an underlying health problem, which Simon has alluded to in the last couple of weeks. And it was clearly an issue. And he's got in there, taking the fight, taking the money, knowing that he's not at 100%. You know, the questions that need to be raised are the British Boxing Board of Control. Why didn't they know this? Why haven't they spotted this? You know, they have these regular checks, weight checks. We know how much he struggles to make the weight, and that was a big problem. That was a big problem in the last fight, you know, and there was big concerns about him struggling to make the weight. Going in there with underlying health problems as well is a big concern. You know, a big concern.
And it's not just the Boxing Board of Control, is it? Because this was Ben Shalom on the show last week.
I think anyone with any sort of brain can see that wasn't Chris Eubank Jr. He was a shell of himself. I think he threw 30% of the punches that he threw in the first few rounds in the first fight. He was finished. He was done. He didn't even have the energy to fight back. And I don't want to make excuses because at the end of the day, a lot of fans paid a lot of money to go and see that fight. And what an event it was, what a spectacle it was. But all I'll say is that we knew on the day that he was not right. And that it's not for me to go into why and how.
He wasn't right before it.
He was not right before the fight.
You knew on the day he wasn't right before the fight.
We knew it was going to be a tough ask to see the Chris Eubank Jr. that we all know.
Okay, so in which case, then why did Ben Shalom allow him to get into the ring and fight?
Because it's not Ben Shalom's gift to dictate to another man what he does and doesn't do. The idea that he may not have been right. I mean, imagine there's plenty of fighters on fight day that may not be mentally or physically right at 100% to go into a ring, but can perhaps back on themselves to produce an outcome. Some people would say that when Anthony Joshua went against Andy Ruiz, he wasn't psychologically right, and they saw the ramifications of the outcomes during the course of the fight, and that was an excuse that was brought forward for Anthony Joshua's loss, or an explanation, depends upon your perspective. Chris Eubank Jr. is a big boy and decided that he wanted to go into that fight, and for one reason only, because he was getting paid inordinate amounts of money, not because of the obligations to maintain the family name, because if someone offered him 50 grand to maintain the family name, he'd have told him to bugger off. The fact they've offered him £10 million to do it, then he'll do it.
Simon, doesn't the promoter or the team in around him have a duty of care for this guy going in? Ben Shalom said himself there, we knew on the day that he wasn't right. I mean, that's a big concern, that, for me.
Depends what not right means.
Again, everyone is getting paid out of this, so they're putting wealth over health. God forbid something happens.
Well, if he now says he's been dealing with a lot of health issues, I mean, obviously, clearly, he wasn't right, was he? Well, it's not a headache.
But again, go back and say that he was probably dealing with the same health issues. I've got an in-principle understanding of the challenges that he's got. It's not my gift to talk about someone else's medical condition, but they are legitimate. They're not an excuse for the performances that he's put in. They are a legitimate concern. They were the same concerns going into the first fight. So they were there. They've been there, this underlying condition, prior to the first fight. They're there in the second fight. Maybe they all thought, irrespective of the fact that he wasn't 100% and it was a challenge for him, that he could do enough to be able to win the fight, that Conor Benn wasn't good enough to be able to bridge the gap. It proved to be not the case. He wasn't, clearly he wasn't well enough strong enough and physically capable enough to deal with the onslaught that Conor brought into that particular fight and the challenge that he had. But he didn't get knocked out.
No, but
and he lasted the 12 rounds.
Yeah, he did. But to be fair, he looked like he was walking on stilts from the moment he got in the ring. The coordination wasn't there. The timing wasn't there. The punch resistance, the strength, all of that wasn't there.
And we only know that because he's told us this, right? And no one will be saying anything about this. They'll be saying what happened in the same way people are saying what's happened to Dillian White when he walks in against Moses Itauma and was completely under aroused and got knocked out in the first round and is still going to go back in the ring. So who knows what his underlying condition might have been.
But when we see the videos emerge of Chris Eubank Jr. in the hospital, which they have posted out, and you see those, and he does look extremely unwell, that is a big concern. You can't say he's acting.
I have to say, I think that's relatively absurd. I mean, people go and have surgery. People go into hospital. We don't know the reasons why you're posting an image on Instagram. That's private matter.
It was a very vague statement afterwards as well, wasn't it? He didn't give much context to it. It sort of, he wouldn't say anything else about it. He just had that statement that we saw on the video there, and underneath it he said, about dealing with a lot of health issues. I will not box again until I'm back to 100%. I don't know when that will be, but one thing's for certain: for the fans who supported me through thick and thin, I will do everything in my power to make sure one day the old me makes a big comeback. Were the fans that bought into the event, entertainment and contest, sold a bit of a pup?
Of course they were. Of course they were. We saw the performance from Chris Eubank Jr. and you go like, it was a cash job. It was a smash and grab. He's got in there. He's nicked the money. He's done a bank robbery effectively, and the people that have paid for that to do that. But I've got big concerns over Chris actually getting to the point of getting in the ring with the people that are around him, with the British Boxing Board of Control, with the health issues, the underlying health issues that he had. How has he got through all of that? That is a big problem for me, because I go people lose their lives in the ring, and Chris Eubank Jr. could have been one of those victims, and it should be picked up.
The underlying condition, without being, again, inappropriate, is nothing to do with putting his life at risk. It's about being able to manage his weight and be able to put nutrition in his body in a certain way. So the bottom line is that the British Boxing Board of Control are not going to do internals on a fighter. They're going to rely on certain aspects of it, whether it be MRI scans about brain injuries and so on and so forth, but they're not going to go into other parts of the body. You could turn around and say, well, where do you stop? Do you stop with the fact that someone might have a damaged knee? Where do you stop with a fighter and his team being prepared? We sat in the studio with Bomac telling us that this kid was ready to fight for a world title at 160 and was going to bring it, in this fight, and the strength and capability and the size of him was going to overwhelm Conor Benn. Now, we all know there's a potential bait and switch going on there, but that goes on in boxing all the time. We see people being sold things. I always felt that the fights were pups of themselves, and I don't care what people think about my attitude towards the first fight. It was all sold on nostalgia. It was a barn burner of a first fight. Yes, they put it all in the ring, but it wasn't a world-level fight. It's got turned into this stuff of legend because of their fathers, because of the way the media built it up, and rightly so, because it's an entertainment product at the same time as a fight.
And it was entertaining.
And people liked it. But the fact of the matter is it got dressed up into some sort of myth, some sort of legend of the times. It was nowhere near the fights that their fathers had.
I think the first one was a great fight.
I know you do.
One of the best fights that I've seen in the British ring for a long time.
And you're entitled to that view. But the fact of the matter is it got dressed up into this wonderful thing, bigger and bolder than it ever was, because the backstory was his father came and all of this stuff and all the wonderful stuff that went with it. The second fight I said was going to be a pup. It was a pup, as far as I was concerned. So it's catapulted Conor Benn to #1 in the WBC welterweight now.
So do you have to readjust that view, bearing on mind what we now know about Conor, about Chris Eubank's state health-wise, to sort of reflect Conor's performance?
No, you can't take nothing away. He's got the emotional pressure of dealing with that going into that fight. With everything else, you can't take nothing away from Conor's performance. He went in there and he got the job done. Was it a world-class performance? No, it wasn't a world-class performance.
Should it have elevated him to #1 in the world?
How absurd is this that at 147 now he's been put in the WBC #1 rankings? He's not boxed there for 4 years. I mean,
it's absurd.
I'm going to get into the WBC and I'm going to go into that a little bit.
We'll do that in a minute,
when we get into Terence Crawford, because there's some more issues with them as well. But yeah, I mean, look,
WBC are a joke, aren't they? They allow champions in recess for a year at a time.
Yeah, make it 3 years. Make it 3 years with Tyson Fury. He didn't have to defend.
Yeah.
Just finally, before we get to the break, do you think Eubank Jr. will come back?
I don't think he will. No. Definitely not. I think those last two fights, he's 36 years of age. Where's he? Yeah, exactly that. Where does he go from there? And I think that he's clearly had physical damage there. And
no chance for trilogy. That's all over.
Oh, that's gone. Yeah, that's history. That's finished.
You're not sure?
Oh, Snake Oil can pop up and create a narrative for it, can't he?
Right. We got to talk about the WBC and the seriousness of which we should take them as a governing body after their actions in the last week. We'll do that next.
Boxing update on talkSPORT with DAZN, the global home of boxing. Sign up now at dazn.com/boxing.
This Saturday, Brits Shabazz Massoud and Peter McGrail headline in Monaco for the EBU European title with a stacked undercard featuring Pat McCormack and Johnny Fisher. You can watch this Saturday only live on DAZN. This is from Simon in Warrington, who says, Simon, you are doing nothing for the rumours of your relationship with Benn Shalom. Get your nose from his backside. So him putting on a fight with a fighter who was clearly unwell is fine, but you objected to Eddie putting Benn Eubank on regarding the drug situation. It's the exact same thing, he says in massive capital letters. Both completely wrong and dangerous.
How is someone allegedly taking performance-enhancing drugs the same as a fighter not being 100% fit for a fight, but choosing to make the fight, and a promoter potentially acquiescing to a fighter demands? Chris Eubank saying, I want to make this fight. How is that comparable?
I think the point is that in both circumstances,
people have jeopardy.
There's jeopardy, and a fighter could get seriously injured, if not lose his life. I think that's the point.
Well, again, it comes down to the mechanics of what people think the jeopardy was, given that the observer doesn't know the ailment of the fighter and only saw the outcome, and the fact that Chris Eubank lasted 12 rounds, I think is a different comparison. I understand the point he wants to make, and it's got nothing to do with Benn Shalom, because I'm as critical of Benn Shalom, despite people's protestations, as I am of Eddie Hearn or Frank Warren.
Let's see how critical you are of the WBC, because the WBC convention held its annual mandatories yesterday, where a host of fights were ordered. What do we make of the matchups, and what do we rate of the chance of the bouts actually happening? The WBC president, Maurizio Sulaiman, has been talking about Terence Crawford as well, who was stripped of his WBC super middleweight title, which he won from Canelo in September, but he was stripped of it for not paying his sanctioning fees. Sulaiman explained the situation to the Boxing Scene channel.
He did not comply with the rules, then he moves up to super middle and makes the fight of the century, beats Canelo, makes $50 million or around that. The WBC absolutely is not going to charge 3% of such an amount. We made a very clear 0.6%, which is $300,000, with $225,000 going to the Jose Sulaiman Boxers Fund, which is to help former fighters in need. And it is just regrettable. Not even a thank you or I'm sorry, taking a different route. No response. I wish him the best. But this is not. The WBC is huge, it's great, it's about greatness, and I'm relieved, to tell you the truth.
That's the WBC president, Maurizio Sulaiman, explaining why Crawford was stripped of his title. This is Terence Crawford's response, and it's expletive-laden.
So since you, the WBC, and you got green belt, which don't mean real belt is the ring belt, which is free. What are you talking about? You want me to pay you more than the other sanction bodies because you feel like you better than them? How in the world all the sanction bodies agreed to the same amount, but you sit up there and say that I need to apologize to you? You can take belt. It's a trophy anyway. Am I paying you every time I step foot in the ring?
Obviously not happy about the idea of having it taken off, and despite his protestations. Does he or does the president of the WBC have a point?
Look, the president of the WBC, Maurizio Sulaiman, does have a point, because historically it's always been 3%. That's what the fighters play, and that is what it is, and that's what it's always been. Obviously, a fight of this magnitude, which was being billed as Fighters of the Century, $50 million allegedly he got paid for that one. They don't want to take 3% off him. They said let's do 0.6%, which is $300,000. So I understand it, and that's just the way the system is. Don't tell me he's not paid the WBC sanction fees before, because he must have. But now what he's saying is, I don't want to pay that. that because I want to, you know, the Ring Magazine are the ones that have got it right. The Ring Magazine obviously is one of the most historic belts and considered the number one of the 4-belt era, the Ring Magazine, but they don't charge. So that's where he's at, and that's the point he's making. But then how did the WBC then make their money if they don't make commissions off? It's like everyone charges for everything. All the other sanctioning bodies would have charged him as well, whatever that was. So
it would appear to me that there's 5 sanctioning bodies, which would have been the WBC, WBA, the IBF, the WBO, and the Ring Magazine. That's why it's 0.6%. Because if you divide 3% by 5, you get 0.6%. I have very little respect for the WBC and the way they operate. I have very little respect for Mauricio Sulaiman. I think they're a hypocritical, disingenuous organisation. But I don't think there's anything fundamentally wrong with what he said there. And if it is indeed the deployment of those funds go to the well-being of fighters, we can't have an industry that constantly talks about the need to look after its own. And then when it gets to the top end of the tree, the top end doesn't want to pay it down. Yeah. The challenge for me is that this organisation with WBC lacks all integrity. It makes up belts when it feels like it because it's a sycophantic organisation. It makes up defence charges for fighters, or defences for fighters about in the Conor Benn situation. It allows fighters to be, you know, champions in recess and denies opportunities. It doesn't enforce mandatories like Dillian White for years and years and years. They're a bunch of hypocrites. So when they start moralising about the industry, they should get their own house in order. But I don't know why Terence Crawford, I mean, he's sucking up to Turkey El Sheikh there. He's the greatest fighter around at this moment in time. He doesn't need to. And I don't know why he's taken exception to the WBC. Maybe he thinks all the things I've just said and resists it, or maybe there's some other motivation.
Possibly. But can Terence Crawford's loss be Hamzah Sheeraz's gain? Will Hamzah become a world champion at the second time of arcing? With Crawford stripped of the title, Hamzah Sheeraz will now fight for the vacant WBC super middleweight belt against Canada's Christian Mbili. And after his last performance at world level, this is an opportunity to make it count.
Yeah, absolutely. Edgar Berlanga was that last performance, his debut at super middleweight. He won that in 5 rounds, and he looked sensational in doing it. It's a good fight. On paper, this is a very good fight and a great opportunity for Hamzah Sheeraz. That's the way that the game works. People get stripped and titles become vacant, or, you know, people get elevated to champion. It's historically always been that way. It's not an ideal circumstance for Hamzah Sheeraz to win the WBC title, but, you know, so be it. It will go down in history if he does claim it.
Monetarily, no. I mean, we've seen Hamzah step up at middleweight to a level that we thought he was going to beat Carlos Adames, and he didn't. He came up short.
Quite an underwhelming performance.
It was, but then people will perhaps say that at the weight it was a difficult one for him. No one had said that before, but now that he had the manner in which he performed against Carlos Adames, then the outcome was different. Against Edgar Berlanga, he put on a very credible performance. I think he beats this Canadian guy. He misses out on an opportunity to fight Terence Crawford, but who knows whether they'd have got that next anyway? Who knows what the sanctioning body's list of order would have been? Would it have been the WBC, the WBO, the IBF, or the WBA that he had to defend first? So it's great for Hamzah.
Or would they have gone back to giving Canelo another shot, a return against someone like Crawford, and trumping someone like Hamzah Sheeraz? They've got a history of doing that, by the way, WBC.
And the other standout fights the WBC have ordered, Conor Benn confirmed as mandatory to Ryan Garcia versus Mario Barrios for the winner of the WBC welterweight title. Ben Whittaker versus Joshua Buatsi, ordered as a light heavyweight eliminator in a division which is pretty hot right now. And Moses Itauma against Lawrence Okolie, ordered as a heavyweight eliminator, and will be speaking to Joe Gallagher very shortly. It's talkSPORT, it's Sam Matterface alongside Spencer Oliver and Simon Jordan. We're here through till 1 o'clock this afternoon, talking boxing right the way through. We talked about the WBC and their ordering of certain fights, and one of those was Moses Itauma against Lawrence Okolie. Let's discuss it now with the trainer of Lawrence Okolie. He is Joe Gallagher. He joins us now. Hi, Joe.
Hi, mate. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Thanks for coming on the programme again. I know that you and Simon had a little bit of a discussion the last time you were on about the idea that Lawrence Okolie not getting mentioned enough, not being spoken enough. Now, this is a big fight that has been ordered. Is it one that you would like to take?
Yeah, no, definitely. Just to correct you, it's Lawrence Okolie versus Moses Itauma, not the way that you keep suggesting it. I have to keep pulling people up on it straight away. Lawrence Okolie is the number 1 heavyweight. We petitioned for him to become mandatory for Usyk. The WBC have decided to let Usyk have a voluntary. Kabiel is having a fight in January. Lawrence is fighting in 2 weeks. And they wanted him in a final eliminator. They said Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois, 2 and 3, weren't available. So the next in line was Moses. If the fight happens, great. Lawrence is pleased because he just wants to be involved in a big fight. As Lawrence says, he's here to fight anyone and everyone. And whether it's Moses or Hrgovic is the next one behind him, any of them guys, Lawrence just wants to be involved in the big fights, and the WBC have made that now.
Yeah, Joe, I had a catch up with Lawrence actually out in Nigeria, and he was talking about the opportunities to fight him, these big names, and saying that actually he was being avoided by all the big names. What's the likelihood of this fight really materialising here? Do you think that Moses Itauma, who's being highly touted as the next kid to be, the next generational great, what's the opportunity? What do you think the likelihood is, that he boxes Lawrence Okolie?
Personally, myself, I don't think it happens. I think they've got plans for Moses. They've got a plan. I don't think Lawrence does. One of them plans, I may be proved wrong. But obviously, he was after the Gassiev until Gassiev got the fight. He most probably would be after the winner of that. Then he was ordered the Sanchez final eliminator. He withdrew with that. And then there was talk about him and Wardley. Usyk give up the belt for them two to fight each other. That'll never happen because they have the one trainer with Ben Davidson. So, listen, as quick as Ben Whittaker, Josh Buatsi was made yesterday, it was quickly undone by the end of play with Eddie saying that won't happen. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, both boys are under the Queensberry banner, and Lawrence and Moses are both training. They're in camp at the moment, and I think discussions for this won't start really happening until both boys have got these fights out of the way.
Joe says he doesn't think the fight will happen, but is it a fight that you think that Lawrence should be taking? Because Moses has been someone that everybody seems to want to avoid at the moment.
Joe's in a better position to make that observation because obviously Joe told us recently, he made the outlandish claim that Lawrence Okolie would beat Oleksandr Usyk. So Itauma is an easy night's work, I imagine, in Joe's logic. Simon. Stop it, son.
Yes, you did.
Simon. Listen, I was talking to Usyk the night over here, and we were saying about the chance of fighting Lawrence Okolie, and I said, you do know he's got to cause you a whole different set of problems, and he knows Lawrence, he knows him well. And so it's not outlandish. It's not as outlandish as Joshua Jake Paul. Let's put it that way.
It's deluded. Do you think Lawrence Okolie can beat Oleksandr Usyk?
Well, of course, Lawrence Okolie starts a big underdog, but Lawrence has had two fights now as a heavyweight, and that was against Kevin Lerena in his last fight.
And he did well because he was injured during it.
Because he was injured in that one. And Hussein Mohammed in his first fight, he won that in the first round KO. And I was speaking to Lawrence out there. He feels much more confident. I think that was the problem we had with Lawrence and his negative performances down at cruiserweight towards
Is
the
that
end,
down to
confidence?
confidence?
Because of weight making, Simon. When you're struggling
Let's ask Joe.
No,
Joe, you were talking about the idea that when you took on Lawrence Okolie, that if he produced the same sort of outcomes that he produced in the cruiserweight, that you wouldn't be interested in managing and training him in that respect, and you wanted him to be a more aggressive fighter. Are you seeing what you envisaged or what you dictated were the conditions of you training him manifesting themselves?
The 3 fights that he's had for me, 2 are first-round knockouts, and last time he beat the WBC Bridgeweight champion Kevin Lerena, who dropped Daniel Dubois 3 times. He beat him with every round with one arm. So what he's doing in the gymnasium, the styles that we're trying to implement for him to do, and just like Spence said there, weight making these big boys from 14-4. You look at Lawrence now, you look at Richard Riakporhe, the size of them now, they've allowed the body to breathe and grow and develop. And you look at young Eubank Jr. just recently, it's just killing him making the weight. And I think that was the very same with Lawrence Okolie. Also Zelfa Barrett, they've all moved up in weights and they've all got a flourish, but we've got to make...
You were specific, though. You made the point yourself about the approach you expected from the fighter. You didn't make it conditional upon the fact he was having difficulty making weight. You made the point that you expected a mindset from this fighter. So that must indicate there was a mindset that needed to be changed slightly.
100% an elite mindset, Simon. Elite Simon. I don't think there's many boxers in this country at the moment with the elite mindset. And when I see an elite mindset of the likes of a Mayweather, of a Canelo, of an Usyk, of a Hagler, a Hearns. We've gone through a golden era, and like anything, the cycle will come around again for another 12, 18, 24 months. But there's not really a handful that you just mostly turn around and go, they've got elite mentality for whatever reason. It's a hard sport, and we've seen that over over America. A lot of people don't take up boxing in the heavyweight division now. They're all basketball or NFL or
But hasn't
whatever.
elite mentality got to be backed up by an underlying elite ability?
Yeah, but also to jump in on that one, that elite mindset that you have to have. If you've got weight issues or you're struggling at weights, etc., that mindset is not 100% and is not in the right place. So it goes back to what I was saying with these cruiserweights that were struggling to make the weight, now have gone up to heavyweight. They've deleted that from their minds. And speaking as an ex-fighter, I know for a fact that when you have a problem like that, making weight, it does affect your performance. It affects your confidence. So, nothing's quite set in stone. So for Lawrence, with that out of the way, he could prove to be a difficult opposition for any heavyweight out there.
Again, I pose the question, Joe. To have an elite mindset, I understand. And I understand, well, I don't understand because I've not got it in that particular space. But I can imagine it and imagine what you're saying. But hasn't that got to be underpinned as well, with putting into consideration the weight situation, by having an elite ability? Has Lawrence got an elite ability to match the mindset that you're curating for him to be able to beat the best heavyweight? Kevin Lerena was a good job. Kevin Lerena is a difficult customer, and he did it with a handicap. But with due respect to the Bridgerweight, I didn't think that was much opposition.
Yeah. No, I agree with what you're saying, Simon. With the ability, you've got to remember Lawrence Okolie, an Olympian, didn't have much pedigree, went to the Olympics, is a two-weight world champion, and listen, he's had one bad night at the office with Chris Billum-Smith there, but since then he's performed, and all the work we're doing in the gym. The thing is with him, Simon, he's willing to learn, and this thing you can't teach old dogs new tricks. You can, do you understand? And he is adapting, and he is applying, and the willingness to learn is there, Simon. I'm giving him stuff to watch and learn and come back and do homework, and he's bringing it in on time. He's not coming in the gym and saying, "Did you watch that?" And he go, "Oh, I forgot." So that's one of the key elements. He's listening, he's learning, and he's taking everything on board. It's like a sponge taking things on. It's an exciting journey, and I'm trying to install into him the pride of owning the WBC World Heavyweight title, of who's gone before him, of your Ali's and everything else, and understand the magnitude of the what he'll be carrying on his shoulders of being that WBC World Heavyweight Champion, and the pride in that, and to get that, he has to perform like this, have a mentality like this, and a skill set like this, and be able to adapt in the fights.
And you talk about the journey that you've already been on and what you're trying to do to take him on one, but what does the path look like going forward? If it's not going to be Itauma, you've got a fight on December the 19th in Nigeria. What does the pathway look forward?
Well, if the Itauma fight doesn't, next in line is Hrgovic. So they said yesterday, if it isn't Moses Itauma, it must well be Filip Hrgovic. That's another good fight. Two tall, upright kids. Hrgovic last time out, I thought I was very impressed with him in Riyadh. He's with Abel Sanchez now. His conditioning and his work rate was very good. I think when he fought Dubois, he started to blow in the middle rounds, and Daniel got him. But I thought, apart from them rounds where I think it was Adelaide landed a handful of shots, he recovered and came back well. But I do feel that that's a good fight for Lawrence as well. The thing is, it's a final eliminator, and whoever's in the opposite of the corner wins this, he's next in line for a shot at the World Heavyweight title.
Joe, thank you very much for coming on the programme again. We appreciate it. It's Joe Gallagher, who's the trainer of Lawrence Okolie, joining us live this morning on talkSPORT. Oh, Joe, you got something else to say? What do you want to say before you go?
Yeah, no problem. Just quickly while we're over here, Spencer, just over at the convention, what I've asked for them to consider as well is that from Bridgerweight and heavyweights to wear 12-ounce gloves, not 10-ounce gloves no more, and to bring in a new weight division between light heavyweight and cruiserweight. There's a massive gap of 25 pounds before it, a division called light cruiserweight, and that's been put on the board for the WBC out here at the convention.
That's brilliant. Yeah, you're out in Bangkok at the moment then, Joe, yeah?
Yeah, I'm about to fly back. I've got a lad fighting Saturday night in Liverpool.
Good stuff. Cheers, Joe. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Joe Gallagher joining us live on talkSPORT this morning. You're listening to White and Jordan on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out this month's real deals at selcobw.com. We'll rattle through some boxing at any other business next.
Step up to the Okolie and win on talkSPORT.
Absolutely. You're a week away from the Talks Darts Presenter Trophy, and this is your chance to be there. You and a mate could be the only members of the public allowed in on Wednesday, the 10th of December in London, as 8 of talkSPORT's biggest names take to the Okolie. You could be there with us, rub shoulders with your favourite talkSPORT presenters. The very next day, you'll be heading to the opening day of the PDC World Darts Championship. 2 nights in a hotel will be covered, and you'll have 250 grand as well. For your chance to win, text WIN to 83338, and text costs £2 plus your standard network rate. Or you can call 0343 423 9761. 2 nights in a hotel. The opening day at the PDC World Championships. $2,500 in cash for you. And you get to rub shoulders with your favourite TalkSport presenters as well. Lines close at 4 p.m. today. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK excluding Northern Ireland. It's a network promotion. Full T's and C's apply, and it's at talksport.com. Spencer Oliver is in the studio with Simon and I for the next few minutes. Why is Oleksandr Usyk indexing himself to Deontay Wilder?
Just Oleksandr Usyk wants to box Deontay Wilder because he wants to clean up this modern era of boxing. Fast forward 20 years and people are going to look back at this era and Deontay Wilder will then be on the list. Otherwise, it will be like a little missing link, if you like. Look, Deontay Wilder is well past his best, but in years to come, people are not going to remember that. And I think for Oleksandr, what else is there left to do?
He doesn't want to fight Fabio Wardley.
He's looking at commercial value, and the big name is Deontay Wilder, where Fabio Wardley is the most dangerous opponent for sure, but he feels that he's not earned his stripes yet, and he feels that, Deontay Wilder, he just wants that name on his list.
Is he still a big name? Is he still a big draw?
I think he probably is for various reasons that you can blindfold the public and get them to buy things.
Sure.
And the interesting thing for Oleksandr Usyk, which we discussed the other day, is this goes against what we believe to be the principles of Oleksandr Usyk's underlying drive, which is to be the best in class, because Deontay Wilder is no longer that. Now, but we're fortunate that he's had this opportunity to fight Daniel Dubois twice, Anthony Joshua twice, and Tyson Fury twice, because it's ticked 2 boxes: A, the commercial value, and B, the integrity of the sport. Fighting Deontay Wilder rather than fighting Ajak Kabial or fighting someone of that nature lacks the integrity. But what does Usyk need to prove? He's stuck around when most people think he doesn't need to. He's done the job that he needed to do, which was win the Undisputed twice, bankrolled himself with enormous amounts of money, or banked enormous amounts of money. So the only reason he's fighting Deontay Wilder, besides Spencer's assertion, which is probably right as well, that it ticks up an era in years to come, is that's the money in the room. That's what Turkey Al-Sheikh will pay for.
Yeah. Is it worry that Fabio Wardley isn't that draw?
No, it's not, because he's just starting his journey. We're talking about different generations here, and Fabio Wardley, like Moses Itauma and that, will come into, like, when you're looking at the best heavyweights of the last decade, you go Tyson Fury's in there, Anthony Joshua's in there, Deontay Wilder's in there. They were the big 3 names that were in and around there. And the fights that we haven't got is obviously...
It's unfair for Fabio, really, because Fabio's battled against this constant diminishing of him. For every fight we goes into, all of us have picked opposition because we think that each level he goes to, he can't win the fight. The only caveat to that was the Justice Haney fight, where most people thought he was going to win that fight, and he really struggled. And to all due respect to Fabio, got a little bit lucky. In the fight against Joseph Parker, everyone picked Joe Parker. Here he is now, a bona fide title winner that people are going to discredit because ultimately Oleksandr didn't step down and let the WBO belt be fought for Joseph Parker and Fabio Wardley. He's a bona fide champion, and he should subsequently get the rewards and recognition, and that meant Oleksandr Usyk. It should mean that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talking of diminishing, the war of words has burst into the open. It continues between Matchroom's Eddie Hearn and boxers Benn Shalom.
There's an insecurity there. Eddie started working for Matchroom at 35 years old. He sees me come along at 27 and do things from my own back, off my own back, and have to go through this struggle that he didn't have to. And I think it screams every insecurity that he's got in his body. I'm not going to go back and forth with people that haven't started their own business, that haven't built things for themselves, and that don't stand on their own 2 feet. It's not worth my time. The reality is, Eddie is a great talker. He likes being in front of the camera. He went and did things on his own and ended up back at Matchroom in his mid-30s working for his dad. He talks about the fact that we have only one thing in common, that we both had the Sky contract. We have 0 in common. I had to get every contract that I had. It's not very hard to become the Sky promoter when Matchroom are already providing shed loads of sports and are already promoting boxing on Sky. The journey's completely different. It's completely unrelatable. And I think that's why he gets so touchy around the subject of myself.
It's a bit like, I don't know, PSG having beef with Accrington Stanley. It's just like there's no relevance to it at all. But let's be honest, if you were boxer, and you're sitting down in your board meeting, you're having your sort of strategy Mondays, and it's like, right, we've completely ruined boxing on Sky Sports and all of our fighters are leaving and want to sign with Eddie Hearn. The production looked like it was done by a 4-year-old. What are we going to do? Oh, let's have a go at Eddie Hearn. That'll get us on talkSPORT and a few other outlets as well. So we've had calls from a number of his fighters in the last few days wanting to join Matchroom, and the exodus is upon us. So keep battling away. You know, I don't know about this building business stuff. I mean, when he says I've achieved everything off my own back, he ain't achieved nothing yet.
That was Eddie Hearn this morning speaking on talkSPORT Breakfast with Alan Brazil and Gabby Agbonlahor. I mean, have each of them got a point in some sense?
They're both right. I've forever advocated for Benn to push back against some of the antics of Frank and Eddie and have some balls about him. Whether I would pick this fight... I mean, Eddie Hearn, whatever I do disagree with Eddie on in the past, I do think that he is brilliant at what he does. Whether it's his father's business or not, Eddie plays the man. He does it all the time. He doesn't play the game. So he shouldn't be surprised that someone plays the man in this instance. Because Eddie, what he does is he takes an argument, ignores the argument, plays the man, because the argument don't suit him. So he's getting some of his own medicine back, and he doesn't like it. But also, Eddie is elevating himself. Now he's the chairman of Matchroom. He's putting little Frank Smith in place to be his little oppo and run around doing some of the stuff that he used to do and elevating himself above that, which is what he should do because he's now in a position in his late 40s where he's got a business that's worth £1 billion that's in part being built by him. Yes, the seed capital and all of the infrastructure was put in place by his father, but it still needs to be taken to the next level by him. They're both right. It's a silly fight. It's a silly set of nonsenses. I don't know why Benn wants to take it on. But if he does, and he wants to have a fight with Eddie Hearn, a good fight is one you win, not one you put up. Right?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this really unfolds. I think there's going to be a lot of back and forth with these two, but you can't deny what Eddie Hearn has done. You know, since taking that boxing business off his father, he's taken it to another level. He's taken it global, that is for sure. So, you know, Eddie's had a lot of input in boxing. For sure.
The last thing that Eddie said at the end of that discussion was that Benn hasn't achieved anything yet. Is that fair?
No, I don't think it's fair. I don't think he's achieved the things that the opportunities might have presented for him. But to go into a business, I did it. I was 30 years of age when I bought a football club and walked into boardrooms with people that had that kind of attitude, which is, you know, you haven't been here, you haven't done anything, you haven't seen anything, you're a young pup, shut your mouth and sit down.
Is that one of the reasons why you're slightly close with Benn?
Well, I like Benn. I like underdogs. I've been involved in certain aspects of his business, chosen not to be involved in other aspects of it. I like all of them. Despite people's belief that I dislike Eddie, I don't. I think Frank Smith's a little twerp, but that's a different discussion. But because I don't think he's earned the right to comment on my financial affairs, whereas Eddie Hearn may well have done, maybe Frank Warren has. So I admire all of them for their acumen. I think Benn is, 27 years of age to get a Sky contract and be able to run a business and build it, and to be able to fight his way into a difficult industry where they don't want to let you in the door and they want to step on your throat. You've got to have balls about you. You've got to have something about you. But the end game is the guy in the room with the best deals, with the most money, is the winner, and that isn't Benn yet.
Spencer, lovely to see you.
Great to see you too.
We'll see you soon. Simon, enjoy your cue.
Yes.
I'll see you on Monday. I'm looking forward to that. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock with Gabby Agbonlahor. Join us for that tomorrow. We'll put up to the big World Cup draw, and the boys are next.